There was no such thing as majority opinion in the country. Not enough Germans supported Hitler, not enough supported the Republic, and not enough supported the old-fashioned conservatives. Almost no one supported the old Kaiser in exile. After all the electioneering of the previous year, the political system had checkmated itself. Since July 1932, the two radical parties, the National Socialists or Nazis, German acronyms usually incorporate syllables rather than letters, and the Communists or the Commune, had composed a slim negative majority in the Reichstag. Given this, the other parties might have been expected to form a coalition to protect the Constitution and preserve law and order. But German politics didn't work that way. To understand how they did work, one must first understand the political divide that made even moderate Social Democrats unacceptable partners to the right-of-center groups. The inability of right and left to communicate, divided as they were on the issue of the November Revolution of 1918, which established the democratic Weimar Republic, and the stab-in-the-back legend, which blamed the revolutionaries for Germany's defeat in World War I, disabled every level of government. The right derided the new national flag, which replaced the imperial colors of black, red, and white as a despicable mix of black, red, and mustard. It dismissed volunteers in the Republican Civil Guard, the Reichsbanner, as Reich Bananas or Reich Bandits. The German right's hatred and dread of the left drove the plot against the Republic and pushed these plotters into the arms of the Nazis. Yet those gathered in the Chancellery building had reached no agreement on the best political plan. It was now past 11 o'clock when Hitler and Papen were scheduled to present the new cabinet to President Hindenburg. Hitler, hoping to attain a Nazi-dominated supermajority in the Reichstag in order to revise or suspend the Constitution, pressed Hugenberg to endorse the proposal for one last round of elections. As the leader of a relatively small party without modern campaign machinery, Hugenberg refused at the last minute, jeopardizing the plan. Hindenburg was expecting them upstairs. The assembled men felt a real sense of urgency. In the past week, 3 big demonstrations had crowded downtown streets in the capital. Nazi stormtroopers, Sturmabteilung, or SA, on January 22, shouting, "Germany, wake up!" Communists on January 25, Red Front, and Social Democrats on January 29, Freedom. The negotiations to put Hitler in the #1 spot as Chancellor had been difficult, and most of the men in the room had heard rumors that the Army Command was unhappy, although no one was sure whether the Reichswehr opposed the return of Papen to that post, which journalists thought the likely but highly unfortunate solution to the present crisis, or intended to block the last-chance gamble on the people's demagogue Hitler, whose brown-shirted stormtroopers vastly outnumbered the government's regular soldiers. Maybe the army wouldn't move at all. In consultations, Hitler quickly promised not to use future election results to rearrange the composition of the new cabinet, in which Hugenberg and his allies occupied powerful positions. From the perspective of Hugenberg, who suspected that any plan calling for the dissolution of the Reichstag and new elections would strengthen the National Socialists and ultimately result in legislation overriding the Constitution and giving the Nazi leader emergency powers, Hitler's pledge was beside the point. The issue of elections was important. The decision would determine the division of power in the room that morning and the hardness of the envisioned dictatorship. Without new elections, the leaders of the nationalist unity government would rule by emergency decree, which required the consent of the president. The new autocrats would bypass the Reichstag, ignore its negative majorities, and push aside the democratic opposition. Such a solution would be frankly authoritarian, but it would leave power divided between the chancellor and the president and preserve the political influence of the various right-wing partners represented in the cabinet. Government structures would remain in place. This was the illegal path to a partial authoritarian.